You are, of course, watching and listening to the Electronic Intifada live stream. I'm Ali Abu Nema, here with my colleague Nora Barrows-Friedman. For as long as I can remember, Palestinian stories have been flavored with sorrow. Even our most cherished memories are, in some way or another, tinged with misery, whether it's a girl preparing for her wedding, a young man migrating to secure a better future, or an old woman wearing the key to what used to be her home as a necklace. A thread woven through them all is the longing for freedom and home. You'll find that thread woven throughout We Are Not Numbers, The Voices of Gaza's Youth, a new collection published in the UK today by Penguin. It is available now from booksellers, and it will be coming to the United States soon. It's edited by Ahmed Alnaouq and Pam Bailey. That brief excerpt I just read is from one of the pieces in the book, a beautiful essay by Dana 𝐓𝐡𝐞. She is one of several dozen Gaza writers whose work, encompassing reportage, personal reflections, poems, and memoirs, is featured in We Are Not Numbers. The first page of the book states that this anthology is dedicated to 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜, the teacher, author, mentor, and friend who guided so many of Gaza's students and future leaders, including most of our writers. His body was killed on 6 December 2023 by an Israeli strike, but his spirit lives on. The book also honors 4 writers whose work is featured in it, who were killed during this genocide. They are Yusuf Dawas, Mahmoud Alnaouq, Huda al-Susi, and Muhammad Hamo. I'm proud to say that the Electronic Intifada has had the privilege to publish the work of many of these writers over the years, and we continue to do so. The award-winning novelist Camila Shamsi says, picking up this book may seem hard because of the subject matter. Putting it down is even harder. The voices of Gaza's young writers are so moving and varied and astonishing. You'll carry We Are Not Numbers in your heart for a very long time. I can only agree with that, and I'm so pleased to welcome Ahmed Alnaouq back to the Electronic Intifada live stream to talk about this new book. Ahmed is co-founder and director of We Are Not Numbers, the project that gave rise to this extraordinary collection. He is a writer, journalist, human rights activist, and among his many activities, he hosts a podcast with Palestine, Deep Dive. Ahmed, congratulations on the publication of We Are Not Numbers. It's an extraordinary achievement, especially that you are able to bring it into the world in the midst of this ongoing genocide in which you personally and all the writers featured in the book have lost so much.
Thank you very much, Ali. Thank you, Electronic Intifada, for the continued support that you gave to We Are Not Numbers. And just before we came to this live stream, I was told by our senior editor that the contributors of We Are Not Numbers contributed more than 170 pieces to the Electronic Intifada. So thank you very much for your support.
That makes me very proud. Yeah. We hadn't counted them, but that makes me very proud. It only makes me think it should be more than that. So that will continue for sure. Before we get into the discussion, I want us to watch this video of Anas Mohammed Djnane reading his piece. It's called I Want the World to Know, which is included in the book. Let's watch it.
I want the world to know that Gaza is all about life, just like any other place in the world. I want the world to know that Gaza is not the devastated, dusty, moldy place too often shown on the news. I want the world to know that Palestinians are neither victims nor heroes. Just like any other people, we wake up every day to go to school or work. We laugh when we hear a funny joke and cry when we have a toothache. I also want the world to know that there is really nothing that can stop us from falling in love. I want the world to know that some teens in Gaza skip out on their 5th class at school so they can see the girls they love and hand them naively written love letters. We love the smell of the sea and the colors of the sky, especially at sunset. I want the world to know that Palestine has writers, artists, thinkers, and most importantly, lovers. I want the world to know that we're humans just like you.
That was Anas Mohammed Jnane reading his piece, I Want the World to Know, in a video that was filmed several years ago. And of course, we could see you in it, Ahmed. But as I mentioned, Anas's beautiful piece is included in the just published book, We Are Not Numbers. What can you tell us about how Anas is doing today?
Well, I have to say that this video, as much as it describes Gaza and the project of We Are Not Numbers and our dreams and our aspirations, it also gives me huge pain when I watch it, because we recorded this video 7 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, when I was still in Gaza, and when Gaza was Gaza, before the genocide, before the slaughter, when we were having relatively normal life. Now, unfortunately, none of these places that were shown in the video is still the same. Most of these places are destroyed. Anas now, just 4 months before the genocide, Anas managed to leave Gaza to work as a teacher, as an English teacher in Kuwait. But his father was killed in this genocide. His brother, his younger brother, Ahmed, was severely injured. He lost his home. And although his brother was severely injured, he is still trying to work right now to support for his family. So Anas is now married and he lives in Kuwait, but he still, like, his heart lives in Gaza, and he's still devastated for what's happening in Gaza. And also me, I was in this video as well. I lost my family, I lost my home. So this video is, although it conveys the message that we would like to convey right now, that Gaza is full of lovers, of people, of thinkers, of dreamers, it's still very painful for me to watch it.
Yeah. I can feel that, absolutely. Ahmed, in the introduction of We Are Not Numbers, the book, it tells the story of how We Are Not Numbers, the project, got started. And it's a very personal story for you and Pam Bailey, who's your co-editor. Many of us are familiar with We Are Not Numbers, the project, but for those who are new, give us a sense of what the project is and how it came about.
Well, it's funny how history repeats itself, how events in Gaza repeat itself. The story of We Are Not Numbers started. The inspiration behind We Are Not Numbers started after the Israeli offensive in Gaza in 2014, in which I lost my brother and many of my friends. And because my brother was more of a friend to me, he was my older brother, and I loved him so much. And he was killed in that war. I was severely depressed, not only because I lost my brother, but because I was reading the media and how they portray the Palestinians. And they always portray the Palestinians as terrorists who live under the rubble in Gaza. And I was severely destroyed mentally from the loss of my brother. And back then, Pam, who was my friend, she reached out to me on Facebook and she asked about how I feel. I told her, I'm feeling okay. She said, no, tell me something real. And then I told her I'm severely depressed, and when I'm all alone, I go to the graveyard. I sit next to my brother's grave, and I burst out crying. And the first thing that came to her mind is to ask me to write about my brother a story, because she's a journalist, and this is what she's good at. So I wrote my first ever story about my brother, and I was only 19 years old back then. I was not an established writer or author. I'm not, but back then my English was broken a little bit, and she helped me edit the story, and then we published this story online. As I said many times before, writing my first story ever was very therapeutic to me. And then when I finally found my story published in many international magazines, I feel that something is really changing in me, because for the first time ever, many people who read my story came out to me on Facebook and they told me that they've read my story. They were moved by it and they encouraged me to keep on writing. So for the first time in my life, I felt like, okay, there's something interesting. Like there's something I can do in this life that for me seemed like useless and did not make any sense. And I thought, if writing my story was therapeutic to me, if writing my story moved many people around the world, if writing my story meant something to others, then I have to continue writing my stories. And then because I felt better at that time, we came up to this idea of creating a platform for youth and refugees, for young people in Gaza who came out of this war, to encourage them to write their own personal stories in English and share them with the world. So what happened is that we replicated what happened with me and this American journalist with many other Palestinians. We linked them up with international mentors to help them write their stories in English, and then we would publish these stories online. And we have been writing hundreds of stories. We published over the past 10 years over 2,000 stories. These are like personal stories, poems, features, all types of stories, all written by young people in Gaza who are unaffiliated to any political party, who are just writing their hearts out for the Western audiences to hear them out and to hear their stories.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, just the amount of writers and the amount of work that you've been publishing is just it's so. And every time I come across one of the We Are Not Numbers stories or poems or just very short vignette sort of narratives, I'm just struck by how personal and raw and what a beautiful, intimate snapshot of everyday life in Gaza, pre and post genocide, but there's always something that kind of grabs you and moves you and brings you into the story. And I'm as a fan of We Are Not Numbers and the writing projects that has come out of that, but also as a reporter myself and as an editor of the Electronic Intifada, which has been, as Ali said, we're very proud to have hosted these incredible works of art and truth. So,
thank you very much. I know there's something powerful about our stories because they're the unfiltered stories and live experiences of the Palestinians in Gaza. We don't put any layers of filters or politics or anything that would distort the image, the lived experiences of the Palestinians in Gaza. These are just young people who lived under genocide, under blockade, under occupation their entire life. And they're just writing their emotions to the world. They just bleed their emotions and they show it to the world. So there's something powerful about that. No one can undermine the storytelling of these people because it is unfiltered, it's clean, it is lovely, it is powerful. These are the lives, the dreams of the people in Gaza who everyone needs to listen to, regardless of your political affiliations, regardless of what you think about Israel-Palestine conflict or whatever you put it. These are the unfiltered stories of the lived experiences of the Palestinians in Gaza. And I think everyone needs to read these stories. If anyone wants to know more about Palestine, if anyone wants to know anything about Gaza, go to the stories, go read the stories of these young people, and you'll really understand what's happening. Because unfortunately, for the past 77 years, Gaza and Palestinians, we've only been mentioned in the news when there's bloodshed. We've only been talked about as numbers, as statistics. And even now in the genocide, even the numbers that we give and we talk about in the media, they're like contested. People are saying, no, this number is wrong. But we are more than that. And we don't people to talk about as mere statistics. We need people to look at us and to read our lives, to read our stories and put themselves in our shoes so that they understand what's happening. Otherwise, no one can really understand what being a Palestinian means.
And the thing I love about this book, and Tamara, can we show the book again just so people can see it? Of course, it's called We Are Not Numbers, and it's being released today in the UK. And I also just looked, you can pre-order it and probably get it in the United States as well. The world being as it is, it won't be so hard to get. But over the last couple of days that I've had this book, it's what's wonderful is that you can sometimes you read a story and it affects you, very emotionally. It really touches you. But the nice thing is you can read a story and put it down and come back to it and read another one, and you can kind of flip back and forwards, because the way it's organized, this book covers 10 years of We Are Not Numbers writing. So going back, as Ahmed said, right to just after the 2014 Israeli massacre war on Gaza, up to almost the present day. And so you can, in a way, visit Gaza, as we did with that video, at different times over the last 10 years. And it does have an enormous emotional impact. So it's a really wonderful book for that. What I also want to mention, Ahmed, is that the model that We Are Not Numbers has developed and used is that the young writers from Gaza are paired up with mentors. These are typically volunteers outside Gaza, and they work with the writers on their stories. They many of the writers are writing in their second language. English is typically their second language, not their first language. Talk about the role of the mentors. What has their impact been? What type of friendships have formed? I know it started as a way to assist in the writing process, but that has become more than just that. Talk about how mentors have played a role here.
Of course, Ali. But let me first go back to what you mentioned earlier, is that this book is a collection of stories that were published during the past 10 years. Actually, we could publish a book about the stories of the Palestinians after the 7th of October during the genocide, but we meant to publish these stories that happened before the 7th of October, because unfortunately now in the media, everything you hear about is like October 7th and post October 7th. But no, we wanted to show the world what happened 7 years before October the 7th. Because if you really want to understand this genocide, you really need to go back and read how the Palestinians were living before the October the 7th and after October the 7th. So this is like a book of 10 years. And every year, if you go to it, there are 10 chapters in this book, and every chapter talks about 1 year from 2015 until 2025. And anything you want to know about Gaza during that era, go to We Are Not Numbers book and you will find it. For example, we wrote about the many wars that happened 2021, 2019, and also the March of Return, the blockade, every theme you want to know more about, you can find 1 or 2 stories in this book that talk about. And yes, the mentors thing, I'm very proud of what we have done. Over the past 10 years, we recruited more than 400 writers from Gaza, mainly from Gaza, but also from Palestinians all around the world and inside Palestine, West Bank, and inside Palestine 48. And what I am proud of is that we linked them up with international mentors. We recruited more than 150 mentors who helped these writers throughout these years write their stories in good English, especially in Gaza, because most of our writers, they lived their entire life under the blockade of Gaza. We're talking about most of our writers are 18, 20, 19, 21, 20 years old. And most of them lived their entire life under the blockade, under the siege in Gaza. And they never had the chance of meeting people from outside Gaza. I'm not talking about outside Palestine, from outside Gaza. Little foreigners would come to Gaza. Little people who speak a different language than Arabic came to Gaza. So that's why, although our writers are very talented and they speak English very well, but there is also like a language barrier. And this language barrier is broken by those mentors who help our writers master the language, and they also train them on how to write their personal stories. They train them on creative writing. They train them on storytelling. They train them on everything that they need in order to tell their stories in a very nice and neat way. But over time, the relationship became more than a friend, became like they are friends. So that's why many of our mentors became very close friends to our writers. Many of our mentors helped many of our writers like write their CVs, like apply for a scholarship, get a job here or there, and many of them help them as like to console them or to give them therapy sometimes if they need. So I'm very proud of this connection, because it kind of broke not only the stereotypes about the Palestinians, but also it broke the siege mentally. Because in Gaza, we're never allowed to meet people from different cultures, from different religions, from different places. But in We Are Not Numbers, we connect our writers with our mentors who are scattered all around the world, and they get to know each other, and they get to know their cultures. That for people who live in the West, maybe this is something naive, or it doesn't really matter. But for us in Gaza, meeting someone from outside Gaza is a big deal. And it really helped our writers, and it really helped our mentors know and understand what is really happening in Gaza.
Yeah.
And they got to know our writers as a humans.
Yeah. It's so important, and it's so beautiful to see the fruits of the work, whether it's developing these relationships with mentors and vice versa, and really kind of expanding the reach of their writing all over the world. Well, let's listen to another piece from the book. This one is called "I Am a Girl," and it was written by and is read by Yara Judah.
I am a girl who has no dreams and maybe no future. In a blink of an eye, I could be without hands, heart, and soul. Shall I also tell you about the beautiful park turned into scarred, barren land? Shall I tell you, I would love to fly on a plane, but I'm so scared of being killed by one? Shall I tell you that I'm scared to look at the sky and count the stars, because maybe they will suddenly turn into the lights that kill? I am a girl who in parts of the world where the people matter would be considered too young to ask such things. Much less know anything about them. I am a girl who is forced to be an old woman at the age of 16.
Wow, that was very moving. Yeah, tell us about that writer, Yara.
Well, this piece is also included in our book, and I mean every sentence of her story needs some time to be entangled, because there is a lot of sophistication, and there are a lot of stories that we need to tell about each of her sentences. And it really amazes me how she was only 16 years old when she wrote this piece. She was only 16 years old when she did this video, and she said that I am a girl who's forced to be a woman at the age of 16. And I believe her, because right now, if you go to Gaza, you'll find so many children, little kids, who are forced to live like men, to go and work under bombardment in the genocide right now in order to support for their families, because Israel killed their father or their parents or whatever. And I believe in the future, these stories that we're publishing in this book will be studied by psychologists, maybe, in order to understand the ramification of the mental health on the people in Gaza. Yara was one of the youngest writers to join We Are Not Numbers, and I still believe when she joined We Are Not Numbers, she was very young, 16 years old. Most of our writers are 18 and more, but she has always been very, very talented. Now, Yara, only a few months before the genocide, Yara got married, and she was 16 when she joined We Are Not Numbers, but that was 10 years ago. Just a few months before the genocide, she got married, and now she managed to leave and live in Saudi Arabia with her husband, and now she's become a recent mother. She's now a mother. She has a child, Ashraf, who's only 1 month old, and she lives in Saudi Arabia, but all of her family are still in Gaza. Her mother and father and siblings, they're still in Gaza.
It's really especially moving watching that. Was filmed a few years ago, and then knowing now what has happened. And of course, everyone in Gaza is always aware that war and attack can happen anytime, and that's so deeply reflected in her words. So I'm so glad we could share that. Ahmed, who are you hoping will read this book, and what impact do you hope it will have in the world?
Well, I want every single person in the world to read this book. I want to see it in every shelf, in every house, in the UK, in the US, in Europe, and all around the world. This book is not about politics. This is way bigger than politics. This is about human life. This is about the Palestinians. It's about the humans. 4 of our writers were killed in this genocide, and our co-founder was killed. I want people to go and read these stories. All of these writers, more than 50 contributors, have stories in this book, and all of them, they either lost loved ones, some of them were killed, all of them lost their homes, all of them were displaced. And these stories need to be amplified. These stories need to be read by every single person in the world, whatever their background is, whatever their background or religion is. People need to read these stories, because if they need to understand what Palestine is, if they really need to understand what Gaza is, what living in Gaza under the genocide, under the blockade, under the occupation, they need to read this story to better understand what is really happening there. Enough with reading. It's very important actually to read about facts and human rights organization, and what they're talking about Gaza and the statistics and numbers. But more importantly, you need to read the stories of the young people in Gaza who are writing their heart out to you to understand what's happening. So many of our writers, especially during this genocide, so many of them would write their pieces on their phones, and they would wait for days to have a chance to send their stories to us. So we get their stories that they were written by their smartphones, because they lost their homes, they lost electricity, they lost internet connection, and they would send it to us in order to publish their stories. Those people, writing these stories, writing this book took our writers and our mentors 10 years of work, and a lot of work, and they need to be heard, they need to be read. So please get yourself a copy. It is available in the UK and in Europe and in Asia. In September, it will be released in the US by a different publisher. Interlink will publish this book in the US and North America. Penguin is publishing this book in Europe and in the UK. We also have a translation in Italian. So if you read Italy, the book is also released today with a different publisher in Italy. Soon we will have different translations, Arabic, French, and Spanish, hopefully soon. So please get yourself a copy and make the Palestinian Voices a bestseller.
It's beautiful.
I second that. Get yourself several copies and give them to people. If you can afford to, something that everyone can do is ask their libraries to order it. That's something that people can do. So you can hopefully make it available to the widest audience possible. These are truly extraordinary pieces of writing, and it's truly an extraordinary task that you undertook, you and your co-editor Pam Bailey, to put this book together during this genocide, and with all of the difficulty and the pain that it entails to get through each day nowadays. And of course, the book We Are Not Numbers is something that we really celebrate. It comes out of the extraordinary work over the last decade of We Are Not Numbers, the project. And so I just want to remind people, just show the We Are Not Numbers website again. And people can go to We Are Not Numbers and learn more about the project, learn more about how they can get involved or how they can support the work you do, which is truly essential work. And so, Ahmed, thank you again for all you're doing and for sharing some of the time you have with the Electronic Intifada. And we hope to see you back on our live stream again soon.
Thank you very, very much, Noura and Ali. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you,
Always an
Ahmed.
honor to have you. Thank you. Oh, that was beautiful. Very moving pieces. I wasn't like emotionally prepared for that.
Yeah, and it's also a very intimate experience when you read them in the book, because you really do feel like you're having a conversation with some of these young writers, because their writing is very raw, it's very real, it's very surprising, it's humorous. There's a lot of humor in the book. So it is extraordinary, and I hope people really will take it, because remember that Israel has placed, as Ahmed mentioned, Israel has placed a blockade on Gaza for now almost 2 decades, with the intention of isolating people there from the world and isolating the world from them. And so this book really shatters that isolation in a very profound way.
Yeah. And I mentioned this before we were on air, but my mom has been working with some of the writers through We Are Not Numbers as a mentor. And she just, emailed them. So if, I know people are very eager to want to learn more about the project and possibly become a mentor themselves. So yeah, go to the website, wearenotnumbers.org. And you can learn all about the project there. And it's just like, there's so many ways in which I'm reminded and I think about the impact that our friend 𝐓𝐻𝐿 had on the world. And every time I read something from We Are Not Numbers, there's a way in which I read it in 𝐓𝐻𝐿's voice as well. And it remains like this very, very special, intimate way to keep his work alive and his legacy, up there, always. And so yeah, it's just, I'm very proud, and very moved as always.